Hello, college students of Louisiana. We are coming to you today. This is being presented by LPAC, Louisiana Peer Action Advocacy Coalition. And my name is Angela Lorio. And this is going to be a great series. We have today part one and then part two. You're going to be hearing from peer support specialists, and you're going to know all about what that is and what that looks like as far as a profession. First, to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm originally from New Orleans, born and raised there. And after Katrina, about a year after, I moved to Baton Rouge, and then I met my husband, so I stayed. And I had a son born 1 pound, 12 ounces. And he is now a strapping 8-year-old. Having a son with special needs has been an amazing experience and made me a better person. I became a peer support specialist in 2014. And just a little bit about that. That's a peer is someone with lived experience. So that means we've been through either a mental health challenge or behavioral health challenge with an addictive disorder. We've lived through it, and we're on the other side, and we were trained by Office of Behavioral Health in communications, ethics, and we're now peer support specialists, and we're employed in a plethora of different jobs, different employers, to be able to reach out in a powerful way to walk alongside people and say, hey, you know, I've been there. I am on a state council, SICC council, which is for early learning, appointed by the governor for that. The vice chair, I've enjoyed that work. And again, that's peer support as well, other families who have been through what I went through with my son. And also I volunteer for a capital area human service district. And no matter where you are in the state, there's a human service district there, and you're going to hear about that a little bit later on as a resource. There's crisis intervention teams. So basically I volunteer and I present to law enforcement, first responders, and they are trained for when there's something going down, somebody at a home with a mental health crisis. And when you have a CIT trained officer, they call it, for crisis intervention teams, just someone that's attuned to, hey, maybe something's going on with the person and not just a criminal event. So I love that. And so it's an honor to be presenting to you today. And this is real. This is like a reality show. This is where the rubber meets the road. There's no greater love than to lay your life down for somebody. And these people today, our presenters, are amazing. They're peer support specialists that their passion is laying themselves bare, letting you know what they have been through. So that can help you with something you might be going through now. They can be your stepping stone. You can get resources, but mainly you can see their life as a witness to hope, to get help for yourself, or to know that, it's going to be okay. So we're going to hear some familiar faces that you know well, a few clips, and then each presenter is going to present on a different topic. And we will be fielding your questions live. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you can go to Instagram, and Instagram Messenger is what you can do to send your questions. And LPAC is at Louisiana PAAC. So that's Louisiana, all spelled out, PAAC. And you can just send your questions there, comments, and we'll read them live. Now, if you have a question for a particular presenter that you don't necessarily want, live read, you can send an email to louisianapaac@gmail.com. So that's Louisiana, all spelled out again, PAAC@gmail.com. And so I just want you to know, these people are really, really brave. It takes a lot. If in school, if you've ever had to do a paper or a presentation and it's about you, it's hard. It's hard to get up in front of people and tell people about yourself. So, you're gonna meet some really brave people, and you're gonna hear some powerful stories of recovery, resiliency. So, I hope that something touches you. And even if you're personally not going through something like this, you will have some tools and some knowledge to be able to reach out to a friend if you see a friend going through something. So right now we are going to hear from none other than Governor John Bel Edwards. He did a little promotional video for the event, And we really appreciate him standing in solidarity with LePac and just supporting us to be there, to do this outreach. So we really appreciate it, and know that in this state, you have support from the top down, and there are resources out there that you can reach out to. So let's hear from Governor Edwards.
Beginning high school or college can be stressful, even in the best of times. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, multiple storms, ongoing hurricane season, life can get pretty rough. And yes, we know that you're resilient, but everyone needs help sometimes. It's okay not to be okay. September is National Recovery Month. We all have struggles, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. The Louisiana Peer Action Advocacy Coalition, LePac, has created a virtual presentation where students who've had mental health or addictive challenges can reach out and get the help that they need. Through their lived experiences, they offer hope. For more information, visit lapaac.org. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Governor Edwards. And just like you said, it's okay not to be okay, and there are resources out there. If you are going through something, the resources we have on our website, anything we mentioned today, it's all there. And that's lapaac.org, lapaac.org. So we're going to begin the conversation this morning with an amazing peer support specialist. And I'm honored to call her friend too. Her name is Tanja Miles, and her story is shared all over. She is published in books, magazines. She's been on documentaries. She's been featured on talk shows and on a national television series. She is a passionate advocate of the humane and ethical treatment of individuals with mental health illness, substance abuse, sexual trauma, domestic abuse, and those formerly and/or incarcerated. She's moved thousands of people to sobriety and to a healthy, sustainable lifestyle with her resourcefulness, her passion, and her peer support services. So let's hear from Tanja to start the conversation.
Hey, what's up? This is Tanja Miles. I'm a peer support specialist. I'm an Army veteran. I'm a wife. I'm an aunt. I'm a community activist who are passionate about helping people, particularly when it comes to mental health and substance abuse. I tell people I'm a lot of things. I think the thing I am the most is funny. So I love having a good time. I like talking to people. I like getting people the resources and the help that they need, because I myself have experienced so much trauma, so much drama, so much tragedy that I made a vow to God, you know what, if I get my life right and I get out of this mess, I'm going to help as many people as I can. So as a peer support specialist, that's basically what I do. I share my lived experience, or my living experience, from sexual abuse, from drug addiction, from having a mental health diagnosis, and so many other things that I suffered from over 30-something years ago. Yes, 30-something years ago. I guess you're going, that's a long time. Yes, it is, but I made it out. Some people didn't think I would live to be 18. So the fact that I have this many birthdays is legit. I'm just saying. I'm so grateful for LePac for putting on this much needed conversation when it comes to talk about anxiety and depression and coping skills. I had no coping skills, y'all, for real. I had none. And so that's why I turned to drugs and a whole lot of other destructive behavior to deal with the pain from the anxiety and the depression that I was feeling. When I was a little girl, I had these dreams and aspiration to sing on Broadway. I love talking to people. I love singing. I have the gift of gab, as you can probably already see. And I sung in this community choir. And that was the song that the director had me to sing. And the song went like this: I am just a child I know. Everything I am will grow. Things that hurt when I am small grows much bigger when I'm tall. I had no idea I'd be talking about my life. I'd be talking about my life story, from all the pain from being a childhood sex abuse a victim, and growing up to be someone who became a monster because had all this anxiety and had all this rage and anger and didn't know what to do with it. When I was 7 years old, I was molested. By the time I was 10, I was sexually active on my own. I started doing marijuana at 16. The first time I tried to kill myself, I was 13. I ended up in a hospital getting my stomach pumped. All I was told was, go to church, get your life right. In the African American community, we don't talk about mental health issues. We don't talk about, hey, look, my daughter had, tried to kill herself. What kind of help did we get her? Because my parents didn't know. I had great parents. They did not know what to do with me. I also had a lot of behavior challenges. I got kicked out of elementary school. I know, right? Elementary school. How you get kicked out of elementary school? I did, because I used to fight so much. Again, I had all this anger. I didn't know what to do with it. So turning to drugs was a choice for me, not wanting to live anymore because I didn't like myself, because of who I became from that, sexual abuse encounter. So 13 was the first time I tried to, kill myself. I was in middle school. By the time I had got to high school, I was a hot mess for real. And the drugs became a lifestyle for me. I was totally out of control. I tried to kill myself again when I entered college, and I ended up being in a mental hospital for about 15 days. Trauma ain't no joke. And I know that might not be good English, but that's the real deal. It is a beast. And it's something that we don't talk about. For many years, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know why there was so much anxiety, so much depression was there, until one day someone told me about trauma. They told me about childhood trauma, and how if you have any kind of challenges when you're a child, it could be sexual abuse, it could be the loss of a loved one, it could be any kind of traumatic event. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's trauma. And that trauma can cause, when it goes untreated, depression, anxiety, a whole lot of different things. And the day I was properly diagnosed and they told me I had PTSD, I was like, oh my goodness, I am not crazy. I am not crazy, because so many years I thought I was, but it was untreated trauma. Trauma is real. And in the times that we're living in now, it ain't no joke. I mean, with COVID, I know a lot of you guys, you were, going to school and you were sitting in your classroom, you had your friends, you had your crew, you were, having a good time. That was your community. And when COVID came, that just disrupted everything. And so now you're left to, what do I do? I mean, how do I cope with this? And here's the thing about COVID. COVID discriminate. It didn't care if you were 2 years old or 20 or 75. We all found ourselves on quarantine, on lockdown, stress, anxiety, not knowing what to do, not really knowing what COVID was, losing loved ones and friends to, COVID. And, a lot of us didn't know how to cope. And my heart really went out to you guys. And I'm talking about high school and college students, because you were kind of forgotten about, for real, for real. Everybody was just like, oh my God, what about our jobs and things of that nature? And those are important things. But what about you guys? Your whole community was disrupted. Some of you guys who were going into your senior year, you didn't have a senior year. You didn't have that experience, oh my goodness, I get to go to prom. I get to put on my cap and gown. I get to do all this stuff. All of that was disrupted. Or what about you who were, going into your first year of college? Everybody was like, oh my God, the first year of college is the most amazing experience ever. And you guys didn't get a chance to do that. You had to learn what it meant to, learn at home on a computer. And I don't know about you, but that's not how I learn. I need some people interacting with me. I need somebody I can touch and see. And so you guys didn't have that. And so, you were kind of forgotten. And so that's why I'm so excited that the PAC wanted to make sure that you guys knew that there was hope, that you've experienced trauma. And you know what? It's okay. There's life after trauma. I always tell people, life is going to happen to all of us. It's how we cope with it. And like I said earlier, I didn't have any good coping skills. I didn't know what coping skills was, for real, until I started doing this work and I started doing research. And I realized that we all need good coping skills, because life happens to everyone. Like me, I don't mind a good fight. I'm just saying, I fight for good causes now. But, when I feel some kind of way, having PTSD, that's my diagnosis, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Most of the time you hear it because it's someone who's been in the military, which I have, but mine didn't come from that. It came from the untreated trauma. And some people fight, flight, or freeze. Those are the three things that comes with PTSD. Mine, you guessed it, was fighting. So what I did, I lashed out. I was angry all the time. That was because I didn't know what to do with those emotions and those feelings I were having. Some people freeze. They just kind of stay in one place. They stay on the couch. They stay in the house. They stay in the dorm room. They don't want to talk to anyone. They just kind of retreat. And that's okay. That's their coping skill. And then, some people, again, it's fight, or they just, freeze, or they just run from everything, don't finish anything. They just run from any kind of interaction that is not cool, any kind of disagreement or things of that nature. And so people have different ways with dealing with PTSD. All of that comes from untreated trauma and not knowing to do with those feelings of being hurt, maybe of loss, of losing a loved one, or just something like that. But there is hope. There are so many things that you can do. I know a lot of times you guys hear about self-care. That's a big old buzzword, but you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. Look, I said it earlier, in the African-American community, we don't talk about mental health. That's taboo. You don't go to the church and talk to anybody about it. You don't go see a therapist. Black people, we don't go to therapy. Yeah, we need to. And y'all, look, therapy ain't scary. I'm just saying. And so, there are many ways to cope with a lot of the things that you're going through. If you're feeling anxious and that anxiety, I talk to a lot of college students and high school students who are having panic attacks. Panic attacks are real, but there are ways that they can be treated. So let's talk about some coping skills. Mine is music. I love music. I do. Y'all don't know who the OJs are, I know. But I love music. So music is one of my ways to cope. I just get in a good place, and either I'm at the gym or at my house, and I just, let the beats just go all over my house. Let them drop everywhere. That's a good way to do, but it need to be good music that's going to encourage you, not that that's going to make you set it off, but something that's going to encourage you, that's going to zen you out. That's a good way. Another thing is breathing techniques. I know a lot of times people go, oh Lord, breathing techniques. Well, breathing techniques are legit. They really, really help. They slow down your heart rate. They can slow down your blood pressure, because when you're anxious, your blood pressure rises, your heartbeat. And if you had a panic attack, you'll know what I'm talking about. Your stomach is feeling all kind of way. And so one of the ways to do that is with breathing techniques. They're really easy. I promise you. There's some information throughout this whole series. You're going to hear people talk about breathing techniques. And it's just basically sitting back. A lot of times what I'll do, I'll just sit still. I'll make sure that my feet are on the ground and I'm kind of just real loose. And then I'll just close my eyes and I'll just breathe in, and I'll count to 8, and then I'll breathe out and I'll count to 8. And I'll do that maybe 3 or 4 times. And then before you know it, what it does is it'll just slow your heart rate down. It'll bring your blood pressure down. And then it'll help center you, because what you're doing is you're not so much focusing on the issue at hand, but you're focusing on your breathing. And so breathing techniques really, really help. A lot of times people talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is legit. And it's basically trying to get us to just stay centered and just stay present. Look, I love social media, so I'm not going to be the person going off on social media saying social media all that bad. No, but sometimes when it's overdone and you're overstimulating your brain, that's a lot, because you're in everybody's business but your own. Okay, I'm just talking about me now. But a lot of times what, mindfulness would do, it would just bring us to the present. It would just keep us centered in a good place where we can, just look at the spaces that we're around. We can, be in tune to what the colors are on the wall, or whatever sounds that we hear. And so we just focus on the sounds. You could focus on smell, if it's chicken or something good, I'm just saying. Or you could just focus on just, being, and try not to think about what you're gonna do tomorrow, what tests you got next week, how many papers you gotta write, for tomorrow. Don't think about that. Don't think about the big game this weekend or this Friday, but just think about where you are now and just center yourself. And just sit there and just kind of be. And look, sometimes that's hard to do, because, we're used to our minds being all over the place. We call it a racy mind. But if you can sit and just be in the presence and just stay in your mind, in your head, your space, and just think about something good. Just think about something that you're grateful for. I know there's a lot of jacked up stuff going on, but, just think about, hey, I woke up this morning. That's a good thing. Just think about that. Just think about the little things. Or I tell people, go to a happy place. I love doing that. I love taking people where, if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling depressed, go to your happy place. Your happy place can be to a beach. And I'm talking about going to a happy place, in your head, going to a safe space. It could be on a beach. It could be on the mountains. It could be in California, surfing. It could be at a spa. It's up to you. Everybody got a different happy space. Go to that happy space. Just sit down and just remove yourself from all the things that are going on and just see yourself on the beach. See yourself sitting on the beach. You can hear the waves going. You can see the blue skies. You see the blue water. And before you know it, that's going to help calm you down. Y'all, these things really work, and then look, let me just say this. If you're doing all those things and you're going, you know what, it's still not working. I'm still having panic attacks. I'm still depressed. I can't take a bath. I don't want to get off the couch. I don't want to tell people what I'm going through. Then, go to your guidance counselor or go to the mental health center on your campus and talk to someone and say, hey, look, I'm just going through a lot right now. Or it could be a friend, or it could be your primary care doctor if you have one, and let them know, look, I've done all the mindfulness, I've done breathing techniques, I'm working out, I'm doing everything, and I still can't seem to shake it. And then, they might recommend, something else for you. And that's okay. Everybody's different. Here's the deal. Life happens. I would be lying if I say every day gonna be a day where it's gonna be sunshine and roses. It's not. Some days you're gonna have the best days ever. The sun is gonna shine, the birds are gonna be singing, you're gonna be having a good day. And some day it's not. Sometimes you're gonna, study for a test and you don't do well. Well, you know what, you'll do better next time. But the thing is to not to get into a rut where, depression now has taken over and, you don't want to be around anybody. You don't want to fix yourself up anymore. And you just always feel yourself, in a sad space. There's hope for that. There's help for that. And guys, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to all of us. Hey, look, it happened to me. That was 30 something years ago. And I'm just grateful today that I get to push hope, that I get to tell people, yes, addiction will kill, steal, and destroy. Trauma is real, but there's nothing wrong with getting the help that you need. I have a mental health diagnosis. It does not define me. We need to put more emphasis on the importance of the brain. Look, as women and men, everybody, we love taking care of ourselves. We like making sure, our hair's on point, our clothes are on point. But what about our mental health? We really need to be more mindful of that. And we need to make sure we're taking care of ourselves mentally. So many times we'll go work out, we're thinking that's enough. But no, you should see yourself as a whole person, not just from the neck down, but from the head down. And you have to take care of this organ. This organ is just important as any other organ in our body. And when it's having some challenges, it's nothing to be ashamed of. You are not crazy. You are a real person going through real life issues, but there's hope and you can cope. So there's different ways we talked about that you can cope. Listen to music, go work out, do some mindfulness, do some breathing techniques, go talk to someone. Therapy ain't scary. It's really, really not. I'm telling you, when you go to a therapist and you have a whole hour for yourself, you don't have to talk about nobody else but you. That's a win-win situation. And that therapist will help you navigate through those feelings. Look, one of my favorite songs, I love many songs, but, I'm quoting the famous poet now, Drake. Yes, I'm in my feelings. It's okay to be in your feelings. Your feelings just cannot overwhelm you. And you have to manage those feelings for real, for real. I think about Rod Wave, one of my other favorite songs is Heart on Ice. A lot of times we want to put our heart on ice because we've been hurt a lot, and that's okay. You can do that for a season, but you can't put your heart on ice for, the rest of your life. I mean, life does hurt, but you can heal. And so I'm just so excited that you guys are going to be a part of these series. You're going to hear so many amazing speakers share their lived experience and how when they were in college and they were in high school and they had some challenges, but they worked through them. And look, that's our greatest joy here at LePac, that you guys can hear from us, you can learn from us, and you can maybe apply some of the principles that we use to help us when we were in some of the most challenging times. I'm excited that you guys are watching. Look, life is a beautiful thing, but, things happen to all of us, and it's how we cope with them. But we want you to know that there's hope, that there's help, that you're not alone. Make sure you find someone that you trust and you can talk to and share with them what's going on. I always say, you know what? A lot of times on TV, we see stuff, I ain't gonna call no shows, but they're supposed to be friends and everybody's bickering and stuff like that. Find you some real friends who celebrate you, not just tolerate you, who will encourage you and will lift you up. Remember, we're not in competition. We should be completing each other. And so I'm just so glad that you guys are part of this. Go be great. Have a great year. You're gonna do well. Do not lose hope. Know how to cope. And I promise you, you can live your best life. I'm so glad you guys tuned in, and I appreciate sharing this time with you. Peace.
Thank you, Tanja, so much. She has an amazing story, and it's so uplifting to know, even if you're in the darkest place right now and going through some of that, that there is life after trauma. You know, one of my darkest times was going into my first year of college. And I'll do a shout out in a second too. Some of the colleges I attended in Louisiana. But I was sexually assaulted right before my first year of college. And, you know, I didn't know you could get a 0.65 GPA. Yes, you can get below a 1, because I did everything but go to class. And I ended up in a mental institution after that first year of college. So, you know, get the help when you go through trauma. Reach out. It is not your fault. Okay. So reach out and get the help you need. And I told y'all today was going to be raw. Okay. We talk about things about ourselves nobody wants each other to know. You don't want your family to know these things. You don't want other people to know these things. So we have resources on our website of ways you can get help confidentially, so that you can have life past that trauma. And I'll never forget the day, just like she said, I was diagnosed as well. It was very bittersweet. You know, it's like, oh man, I have something, you know, I have this thing. But then, wow, like I'm not just broken. I'm not just, you know, crazy. I'm not just out there. That there's a reason, and it has a name, and you can get past it and you can be well. So just, it's not to turn in, you know, don't turn in on yourself with that shame, that guilt, but to turn out, reach out. So not to turn in, but reach out. And you have your biological family, but she talked about finding your tribe, your people, your chosen family. And that's so important. And that's what you can do in college. You know, you can finally, you know, you move out of the house, you have, you know, you're in the dorm or you're in an apartment, and you can find those people that, you know, that give you life, that build you up. So we're going to do a poll real quick. So we're going to put up a poll just for a few seconds. So read it and answer the questions. Which traumatic event has been the hardest for you? Pandemic, personal tragedy, weather event, or bullying? So just put your answers right quick, and you're going to know you're not alone, because I guarantee you all of these, you know, somebody else is going through it. And as soon as that's done, just click on that. We'll put the results up. All right. So the pandemic, 67%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And personal tragedy, 33%. So that's not a surprise. You know, this pandemic has put us on an island. We have all had to deal with things that were unprecedented, weren't even in our realm of this might happen to me. And it did level the playing field, like Tanja said. So next up is, speaking of music, is a little clip from rapper hip hop artist D1. He's going to talk to us about some pain.
What's up, y'all? My name is D1. For those who don't know, I like to introduce myself. I'm a hip hop artist from New Orleans. I'm a proud graduate of LSU in Baton Rouge, and I'm actually a former middle school teacher turned hip hop artist. And now I've been able to travel all over the world and reach people through my gift, right, of being a rapper. I want to talk to y'all about pain, because pain is something that I know we all experience and we can all relate to. Don't ignore your pain, but also don't allow your pain to defeat you. Your pain is supposed to actually motivate you and propel you towards your purpose. Without pain, we wouldn't know what joy felt like. So anything that you've gone through, it's up to you to decide to use that, to deal with that pain, but to use it. Let it motivate you to be a better version of yourself. Because if it didn't kill you, then it was meant to motivate you. Once again, if you are watching this, that means that your pain has not killed you. Therefore, it was meant to motivate you. So I want y'all to know that I've been through a lot in my life. I mean, even Hurricane Ida just hit. My parents lost their house, y'all. My sister, she got flood water all in her house. My grandfather almost lost his life. You know, he was a few hours away from that, and I had to come down and get him, thankfully, in time. He's 91 years old. In my career as an artist, there have been a lot of people that say, D1, man, you're not gonna make it, man. We don't believe in you. D1, you cool, but you're not it. You know what I'm saying? And I've constantly been the underdog and had to prove people wrong. Even my new single that I have out right now, I used to be an intern for this guy, The Game from Los Angeles. I used to be an intern for him back when I was in college. And I went from an intern to now having him featured on one of my songs. So from an intern to a collaborator. There's a lot of full circle moments that I've seen in my life that have let me know that that pain that you experience on the front end of not being good enough, not fitting in, being told that you messed up too many times, you've made too many mistakes. Whatever that pain is that you felt on the front end, losing loved ones, messing up a big opportunity, that pain is all part of our story, yo. And I'm sitting here smiling because I know how y'all story is gonna end. As long as you don't let that pain break you, that pain is gonna make you, and it's gonna push you closer to your purpose, all right? Like I always say, be real, be righteous, and be relevant, you heard me? 3 is up. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all school year, and just know I'm always here for y'all. My social media is at D1 Music, DEE, the number 1 music, and you can check my music out on all streaming platforms. Please check it out. It's just D1, DEE dash the number 1. All right, peace. I love y'all. April 10th, I wrote this rhyme down. That's my birthday.
Thank you, D. Check out his music. He uses his gift just like a peer, and he's been an educator too. And he was the only rapper to be appointed by the governor. He's on a state advisory council for the success of Black men for Louisiana. So just an example, one after the other, of you go through stuff, you've been through stuff, you recover, you not only rise from the ashes, but you thrive. And, for those of you, just to shout out, I know I've talked to students at Xavier, some of them lost everything in their dorm from Hurricane Ida, and just all of you, if you were at Delgado, I know they were affected as well, no power, to just hang in there and to get through it, and that you can make it through it and just regroup. So thank you so much, Dee. We have a question right quick. Again, Instagram Messenger, send your questions in. This is about mindfulness. Where can I find more information on mindfulness? And there are, just to answer that, there are resources on our website. And also, if you Google it, there's some amazing mindful techniques, that we'll pull up on just on Google, but we have plenty of resources on our website. So next up, continuing the conversation, is William, likes to be called Biff Hitchens, Robert, Robert. And he has been working as a certified peer support specialist over 8 years. Since 2015, he's worked for Metropolitan Human Service District as both a peer specialist and a mental health advocate. He also works with young adults experiencing their first episode of psychosis and is a certified mental health first aid trainer. So get ready for another powerful story. Here's Biff.
Hi, my name is Biff Hitchens. I'm a peer support specialist here in Louisiana. I've been a peer specialist for about 8 years now. Worked in both clinic settings and in home settings, and worked with young adults, teenagers, elderly, and all those dealing with mental health and addiction issues. Today, I'm going to talk a little about my story first. I was diagnosed back in 2009 with a bipolar episode with psychotic features. Today I really am focused on talking about like the effects of bipolar when you're in school and crisis situations and things. But mainly, my onset happened while I was on campus. So I'm going to focus a lot on that in this first part, really just kind of sharing about what it was like with roommates and professors and just the on-campus staff and what could have kind of went better. My addiction, I started with drug addiction back when I was 18. My childhood was pretty normal. I didn't have any traumas or anything. My addiction started as kind of experimentation when I was at LSU. I got in with a crowd that was experimenting in heavy drugs and drinking, and it was very common to do that. But for me, I got into hard drugs really soon, and I got hooked right away. I remember at the time thinking it was great and like, oh, I'm so eye-opening and all these wonderful experiences. But in reality, it started this functional addiction, which is where I was able to still go to school and work and all those things. But I was really just always on a substance trying to get by. And a lot of that was due to low self-esteem. What they call self-medicating is I probably had symptoms of bipolar back then, but I was just unaware of it. I used to take things like Adderall and different amphetamines to wake up for class and concentrate. And then I would drink and use different substances to try and get sleep. So I probably had underlying conditions of bipolar before, but I just wasn't fully aware. And so I'm a musician. And so after I kind of left LSU and went to Middle Tennessee to get my degree in audio and production, and things were going great. I mean, though I wasn't a functional addict, to me, in my mind at the time, everything was going wonderful. I was crushing it in school. I had a label job set up in New York. I had a production partner I was working with. Things were going seemingly great. And going into my spring semester during the winter break, that's when I had my first episode. And it really was, I was at this kind of wild New Year's Eve party. It was, had a lot of drinking, drug use, things like that. And I had my experiences are very spiritually based. They always have been. And I had this large higher power moment at the time where I saw this bright light, everything stood still, and this voice said to me, "You don't belong here, you're better than this." And I've gone back and forth over the years, was it, a higher power, what it was? But after that, I started experiencing what I now know was a mental breakdown. I started having extreme euphoria. I was doing very reckless things, but to me, I was so up. I felt great. I felt plugged in and all these things. And my friends were like, "Are you okay? Like, you shouldn't still be up like this. Like, we were partying the other night. This is like 2 days later." And then I was having rapid mood swings where I would go from angry to depressed to euphoric, and then just, it was just all over the place. And to me, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't really have any foreknowledge about mental health. I had heard the term bipolar. I had heard depression. I remember a friend of mine that suffered with depression in school before, and I was like, "Oh, just shake it." Like, I didn't know anything about it. That's why it's really important that I'm so glad we're doing this with LAPAC and OBH to educate people and young students and young adults about mental health. And I'm going to go into more about kind of what to do when you think someone's in crisis. But basically, when I was on campus, I started, I felt like I was well enough to go back to school. I kind of like leveled out a little bit and then ended up going off to school. So I was away from my support system in Tennessee when I'm from New Orleans. And like all my friends were just like college people I had met in the 2 years I was there. So they weren't long-term friends. So I didn't really have anyone that was super close to me that could really talk into my situation and try and help me. And I got very aggressive with a roommate. Like, I knocked his door down, and I was just like trying to get him to be saved and all these different things. And it got very hectic to where he called the police. And the thing is I was having these small warning signs before then, but the RA who lived with me didn't know anything about mental health. He's like, "What are you doing, dude? This is that." And like, he didn't say, "Hey, this might be a mental health breakdown. Let me get him to the social worker or to the crisis team or to the on-campus staff." And the campus staff knew what to do once they got to me, but there was just a whole lot of stuff that could have been avoided had my roommate known, our roommates known, had the RA known. And so really, like, this initiative, I just don't believe there's enough of it. So I'm glad we're starting to do it. Just some quick facts about mental health. 1 in 4 individuals are coping with mental health challenges, which means it's very common. This is something that is not rare or random to just like a small demographic of people. Like, I feel like most of us deal with some form of mental health challenge in our own way. Like, everyone's had anxiety before a test. Everyone's experienced sadness or something after like a breakup. And so those are just kind of mild versions of kind of, what people with mental health diagnoses deal with. And really talking about depression in youth, it says over 39,000 youth in Louisiana had at least one major depressive episode, and only 18,000 of those did not receive treatment. So that means a lot of kids are suffering in silence and without treatment, where really if you reached out and saw a doctor, you can get on medications and things can level out just really quickly sometimes, and that will be it. And then you can have a fully productive life. And over 27,000 youth in Louisiana cope with severe major depression, and only 9,000 receive treatment. So that's about half, or a little less than half, that actually receive treatment for their depression, which depression can lead to worsening symptoms and suicide, unfortunately. And that's the tough topic, and I'll briefly talk about it later, but that's just the reality with, where society is. A little more about my diagnoses. I'm talking about bipolar and schizophrenia. My diagnosis was schizoaffective disorder, or is schizoaffective disorder, which is bipolar and schizophrenia. Bipolar kind of comes with depression and mania. I've experienced with these long periods of sadness and apathy, low energy, just, not wanting to do things. For me as a musician, I would not have any interest in music. I almost sold my equipment multiple times, things like that. And then the mania, which is kind of what I was experiencing when I had my first episode, more of than depression, is heightened energy. Sleeplessness is usually the first sign. And really for anybody thinking they may have mental health conditions, I always ask them, how's your sleep been? Because usually it starts with disrupted sleep. That's kind of like an early warning sign for most different conditions. And mania is reckless behavior. For me, it's excessive spending of money, driving, taking random road trips and doing reckless things. And schizophrenia is more hallucinations, voices, which I did hear from time to time. I would have voices that would play both sides. They would be friendly, and I would think it was God, and then all of a sudden it would turn on me, and there's a lot of confusion and all these different things. And really for me, the best way I cope, besides medication, which is drastically reduced all of the symptoms I was dealing with, is just kind of putting the voices in their place. It's like a lot of times I would catch them in lies and things, and so I'm like, why am I even listening to you? Why am I letting you speak into my situation? And so the less I engage with them, the better my life is. I feel like I have a very normal life. I work, I have extra, I do music on the side. I can go out to shows. I mean, pre-COVID, but things are hopefully getting back to normal. But just a very normal life on medication, and it's really just kind of learning how to cope with those things. But really, I've had over 36 hospitalizations, multiple incarcerations over the years. It took me about 5 years before I could get fully well. And even then had a few slip ups. So I was on disability for a long period, but I was able to get off of it in recent years, about 4 years now. And so the big key to recovery is just getting back up, no matter how many times you fall. And I'm sounding like I'm a motivational speaker here, but I really feel that, for those that are having these challenges, it's not necessarily going to take as long as mine, but resilience and just putting one foot forward and getting back up. Doesn't matter how many times you fall, keep getting back up. And so a couple of facts about bipolar. Average onset for bipolar is mid-20s, but can occur in teens. Mine occurred when I was 24. It affects men and women equally, with about 2.8% of the population is diagnosed with bipolar, and nearly 83% of the cases are classified as severe. I would say there's even more undiagnosed bipolar. I just know from my job and just in life, talking to people who they say, oh, I'm just an angry person, or, oh, I just, I feel sad every now and again. See, I feel like there's a lot of people that kind of manage it and are just kind of in denial of their symptoms, or just in denial of the condition. And the big reason that you want people to say, hey, maybe I do have an issue, is because medicines can help treat it, and then you won't have to suffer with these issues. And it can just definitely make your quality of life better. And that's what it's all about, is having a fruitful life that, you want. All the things you want to accomplish and all those things can be made possible, and you don't have to continue suffering, with these symptoms that can easily be treated by medication. Like mental health issues are just like diabetes, or just like any other medical condition. It's just a brain condition. And the stigma is the biggest thing that we all talk about in advocacy and mental health. And it's like, we just have to normalize mental health to where, hey, it's a condition like any other. I know it looks like it's the person's acting a certain way, but it really is just so important that we get awareness out there that, hey, it's treatable. And really, to me, like, though they say there's no cure, like, because I take medicine every day, like, I feel like I've got things under like really good control, and there's a way to live fruitful lives. And a lot of people hear the stories about schizophrenia that, like, it's almost, they all assume a certain thing about schizophrenia, like you're always going to suffer. But, I've recovered, and I've seen countless recover that I work with. So just a little more motivation there. Schizophrenia can occur at any age. The average onset tends to be late teens, early 20s, similar to bipolar. For women, it's a little later sometimes, late 20s, early 30s. But I've seen it in my own work start as early as teens for women. It's just kind of your young adulthood to young teenage to young adulthood. It can kind of happen at any of those times. Now I'm going to talk about crisis situations. Like what I was having at school was definitely a crisis situation. So these are some different tips and things that I've been on both sides of crisis situations, where I was the one in crisis, and then I've also helped those that are in crisis. So I'm going to kind of give you a little perspective of both. As the person experiencing the crisis, a lot of times you're very confused. I would get very agitated because I was thinking people were out to get me, that like there was some evil plot against me, that, the feds were out for me at one point. I was also very spiritual. I used to think I was this powerful, like archangel type thing. And I don't know, it was just, to get very confusing. But I would either be very confused or very agitated. And so if you see your friend have like a drastic, or you're experiencing this, where you have a drastic change in behavior, it's like, it's not necessarily that person just acting out. It's like, if your friend's having this, like, you can, approach calmly, just kind of like, it's all about your kind of demeanor. It's just like, say, hey man, like, we're just concerned about you. It's like, have you ever experienced these things before? And just kind of come from a place of, like concern, and definitely watch your tone. Don't say anything that's gonna, if they're agitated, don't say, hey man, what are you doing? Or what's the deal here? Like, because that can make them ramp up even more. And unfortunately, it's all about you being the bigger man or bigger woman, and being calm in that situation, even though it feels like, they're being very aggressive, saying things that are offensive, all those things. If that's not their normal behavior, they could be having either their first episode or dealing with untreated bipolar. And so bipolar can look like anger. It can look like just extreme, like euphoria, where the person's all of a sudden doing very, like, I don't know, off the cuff behavior, like, oh, let's go on this road trip, let's max out this credit card, all those things. And I just know, like, when I was in college, I had friends that were like, yeah, let's do that, let's party, and oh, you're the life of the party, that's great. And like, little did they know I was like slowly just, going into extreme psychosis. So it's just very common from what the social workers at school had said, which we didn't know as students. Like, there was didn't say anything about it at orientation, we didn't learn about it in a health class or anything. And these social workers at school knew about it. They were like, oh yeah, this happens all the time. But like, I wish we would have known this is something that commonly happens to college students. So just kind of be aware, just like, if your friend's acting strange, like, it's usually a friend or a family member that's going to approach someone, because, like, they're the ones that are closest to you. They're the ones that are going to listen to you the most. And I had one friend that really tried to help, because he was like, man, what's going on? But he didn't really even think, hey, mental health was the issue. He was just like, man, my friend's acting strange, and didn't know what to do. And, people may resist treatment and things, but the big thing to do, and a lot of times people are quick to call 911 when someone's having this issue, but I can't advocate enough for getting the number for your local crisis team. And so I know there's going to be some resources posted at the end of these presentations. But the big thing is that each area has got a different one. So I'm in the New Orleans area. So Jefferson Parish has one, Orleans Parish has one. And so different parishes and counties are going to have their own mobile crisis teams. And they're composed of a peer specialist like myself, someone with lived experience, usually with psychosis or bipolar or some mental health issue, and then a social worker and a doctor. And so as opposed to police showing up, and I've had good encounters with police, I've had bad encounters with police, and it wasn't always their fault. I was usually very agitated, but I mean, it's just when you call 911 and someone's confused, thinking the feds are out to get them, and all of a sudden there's 5 police at their door. They're like, oh, well, the feds are here. And then it turns into this, huge altercation that if it's someone, like a social worker or someone that's in plain clothes that understands it's not going to escalate, because some cops escalated, and they were, threatening to tase and mace and all these things. And so it just can be, I know there's training for police and things, but crisis teams are the best way to the first line I would call, and then the crisis team can then take it from there. They can call 911. But if you're with your friends and your friend is having whoever is having a crisis situation, and you feel like they are going to harm someone or harm you or harm themselves, then you do have to call 911, because that person you could be saving a life at that moment. So that's kind of all I've got for methods for crisis situations. Lastly, I'm going to talk about crisis plans. If you're someone that suffers with mental health or mental health challenges or any kind of conditions, I would recommend just keeping a list of these important numbers on your phone. Crisis plan doesn't have to be, there's a lot of other therapy things like rap groups and different things that if you are experiencing these symptoms and challenges that you can get involved in, that build kind of a toolbox and a kind of a plan of action when you start seeing early warning signs. But a crisis plan really is just important numbers for either family members, therapists, psychiatrists, healthcare providers, friends who would be helpful, anything. And I would just keep that on a little note. Everyone's got notes in their smartphones, or even old flip phones have notes. So just keep it in a note in your phone. And so when you're having experiences and you might not be able to talk on the phone, say, hey, these are some numbers to call them. They might be able to help better. And organizations such as NAMI can help with creating these crisis plans. And just reach out to different organizations and things in your area to find out about support groups and things. There's a lot of stuff out there, and online groups. Themighty.com is a great online kind of social media collective around mental health. They have a lot of articles and support from different people. And so final pieces of advice, I would say, use local crisis teams first. Personal safety is definitely important. Know when to call 911. And real quick on suicide, I'm sure this is going to be in the resources, but the suicide hotline is 1-800-273-8255. When in doubt, reach out is something I always say. If you think your friend is having those thoughts, they're isolating, they're just acting very reclusive, things like that, shoot them a text, knock on their door. If it's a dorm mate or roommate or something, just kind of be a bother until they say, hey, just check in on them, because you could be saving a life. So like I say, when in doubt, if you think something's kind of fishy or they're acting a little strange, and they're a close friend, or anyone, just reach out and know when to call 911. And if someone is suicidal, the suicide hotline, of course, you can give that to them, but call that local crisis team. I use it all the time here in my job, where I've had interactions with different people we serve, and something sounded fishy to me. They might sound to me like they could be possibly thinking of suicide. So I refer them to the crisis team. They check in on them. A lot of times it's not, but it's good just to be sure and safe that somebody is, not thinking of that, and they can get the help they need. So I thank y'all for listening. I think this is such a great initiative for, you know, all students and young adults to learn about. And I just thank you for being a part of this, and have a great semester and a great rest of your year. And thanks for listening.
Thank you, Biff, so much for continuing to keep the conversation real. Some things he said, only half of the people in trouble get help. Only half of the people. So like I said before, if you personally aren't going through something, you can be a lifeline. You can be that saving grace to a friend or to somebody else you might see going through something, and empower them to reach out and get help, because half of the people in the state of Louisiana suffering silently is not okay. You know, we want to be that lifeline. And that's why we're doing what we're doing today. As I said, no greater love than to lay down your life. We're laying ourselves bare. You know, we're keeping it raw, we're transparent, keeping it real, so that if you are out there and you have been through some of this stuff, you're struggling, to not turn it on yourself, but to reach out. You know, and something he said, you know, hit me too. There might be somebody, man, they're the life of the party. They're so great. You know, they're partying, they're not, you know, sleeping, they can go all night long, whatever. But you know, in your gut, if something's really over the top, you know, not just the life party, but really over the top, really kind of awkward, like, I can't believe he did that, you know, that might be a little red flag. There's something going on, you know, more than just being the life of the party. They may be really struggling, maybe going into a psychosis. So if it's happening to yourself, you don't always realize it. So to reach out and get help. We are going to do a poll real quick about this topic. So it's going to come up on your screen. Just click right quick. Do you experience any of the following? And this is all confidential. So you're going to realize you're not alone. Anxiety, paranoia, depression, or hearing things others do not hear. So just click on your answer right quick, and we're going to look at the results. And I guarantee you there is another college student, if you're going through this, just like you, going through the same thing. That's what this is all about, is that you're not alone and you can reach out. So let's see if I can get the results up here on the screen. All right, so anxiety, 75%. So it's huge. Anxiety and depression is it. And that's why we're so glad we're doing this, because you don't have to live with that anxiety, you know, inside of yourself. Like Tanya said, panic attacks are real, you know, using those techniques, that mindfulness. The quicker you can get help, the quicker you'll be on your way to a better life, and to have that fog, that shadow, that oppression lifted, and to live your life in college, to have, you know, make the most out of it. I didn't get the help I needed right away. I went to a lot of college, but man, I like, what do I want to do? Changing my majors, you know, after I went through the trauma I did. And to know that everybody presenting, they're all from Louisiana. You know, I went to Delgado, I took classes at Southeastern, I went to BRCC, you know, so we're all here and we're right there with you. All right, next up, we are going to intro U.S. Congressman Garrett Graves. Thank him for standing in solidarity.
Congressman Garrett Graves, Louisiana has been through some incredible challenges over the past few years. And of course, the most recent was Hurricane Ida, where you had some of the strongest winds that have ever come ashore in the state of Louisiana, incredible storm surge, huge rainfall. And you can imagine the devastation that people feel when something like that happens. Your roof's blown off, all of your things have been saturated and underwater. And a lot of times people just feel helpless. But one of the greatest things about people in Louisiana is that when people are in need, we all come together. Complete strangers will come in and help to clean things up, clean things out, and rebuild. Sometimes in our personal lives, we'll have a similar situation. You may be challenged with the COVID pandemic. You may be challenged with just being overwhelmed from being in a new school, or some of the subjects you're dealing with, or relationships with friends, or maybe even the loss of a loved one. And you know what? It's another opportunity to receive help from some great folks in our community. So those of you that are struggling with challenges like we all do in our lifetime, just know that there are resources, there are people out there that are willing to help. So I'd urge you, look around for those resources, look around for those people to talk to, because at home in Louisiana, we are such great people and there's never strangers. So reach out, get some help, because we're all going to need it at some point in life. I'll take care.
Thank you, Congressman Grave. We appreciate him taking the time out from his busy schedule to just give that message of encouragement. And it's, you know, you're going to get tired of hearing of it at the end of this series, but to get help. We are going to continue the conversation with another amazing peer support specialist. And I just want to point out all of these stories, all of us sharing, it's not like having a professor or a teacher, a doctor, therapist, those are all good. But it's not us. We're not telling you what to do, what you should do, and all that. We've been through it. So we're sharing ourselves, telling you what we did, what helped us versus just being talked at. So that's the power in this, that, you know, we've walked the walk and we're on the other side. So next up is Katie Penton. She is a person in long-term recovery. She became a peer support specialist in March of 2019. The things she values most today are family, love, and empathy for others. She currently works for Florida Parish's Human Service Authority at an outpatient clinic in St. Tammany Parish. She gets to use her lived experience with substance abuse and mental health challenges to help others who are facing similar challenges in life, using her past pain and struggles to help others to get to a place of wellness has changed her life forever. Thank you, Katie, so much for sharing. Listen up to Katie.
Hi, my name's Katie, and today I want to talk to you guys about dealing with stress and anxiety and a little bit of self-care. But before we talk about that, I just want to tell some of my story. So to give some perspective about where I came from and how I got here today and where I'm at today. So I'm a person in long-term recovery from mental health challenges and substance use challenges. I would say I started experiencing mental health challenges from a very young age. My earliest memories of feeling just sad and depressed were when I was around 9 years old. But it was really in my teenage years when they seemed to become more significant and more prevalent and were happening on a more frequent, almost daily basis. And I think a lot of people can relate to these feelings in the teenage years. You know, there's a lot of transition going on. You're not really a kid anymore and you're not an adult anymore. So it can be a very stressful and confusing time in life. And it really was for me. So I was experiencing a lot of just kind of life stress at the time. My mom and dad were going through a divorce. I was homeschooled all my life and had started public school for the first time. And then I had a friend that died in a very traumatic and tragic way. So this really just, all these things combined turned my world upside down. It made me question everything about what I thought I knew about life at this point. And it just made me feel really unsafe and like everything was turned upside down. So this is really when my anxiety and my depression started, and I started developing these feelings of no longer wanting to live on this earth. I was in a lot of emotional pain and I just wanted to be done with it. So I felt really alone as well. Mental health wasn't something my family talked about or my friends or at school or anything like that. It was just kind of like you deal with your feelings and you set them aside and you move on, you know. So when I was dealing with feelings that I had no clue how to handle, I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have any coping skills, and just really didn't know how to handle my emotions. So around this time was when I started experimenting with different substances. It started with drinking and smoking and things like that, and it moved on progressively to more harder, more powerful substances. So I didn't realize at the time, but what I thought was helping me, which was using substances and drugs, it was actually making things worse for me. I thought by numbing myself and taking the pain away that I was helping myself, but I didn't really know how else to cope with my feelings or my emotions, and didn't know what to do really. So throughout my years in high school, even though I was using substances pretty regularly, not daily at this point, my grades weren't affected. So because I was still making good grades and still had friends, I really didn't think I had a problem, you know. And another thing was addiction was not talked about. I've never heard about recovery or addiction at all. I mean, they had like the drug awareness stuff, the just say no to drugs and different things like that at my school, but I did not feel like those things were practical or relevant, and I didn't take them seriously at all. So to fast forward a little bit, I went to college and was still dealing with the same kind of mental health things. Things slowly were getting worse for me now. Like I was still making good grades in my first few years of college. So it's still, again, I was thinking, I'm okay, nothing's wrong. But I had another loss of a friend. And then the next semester, I ended up having to have a surgery. I had to have my tonsils removed because I kept getting really sick and got tonsillitis a bunch. So right after my surgery, I went through a bad breakup. So with all these things combined, my life quickly started spiraling out of control. And my using that was, you know, every other day or mainly on weekends kind of went right now to this point where I was using every day. You know, I started developing very regular thoughts of not wanting to live, self-hate and self-harm. So I was just hurting so badly inside, and the drugs really weren't helping me the way I wanted them to. They kind of were making things worse. But at this point, I didn't develop any coping skills or anything to deal with those emotions. So I felt stuck in this cycle of fear and using, and it just repeated itself for years and years. And I got to a point where I really thought I was going to die. And it was either going to be by my own hand, I was going to kill myself, or I was going to overdose. So I'm just stuck in this place of being terrified to stop using and terrified to continue using. So it was a very scary place to be. But I ended up finishing college and I got my bachelor's degree just by the skin of my teeth. Like, I really don't know how I did it. I was not in a good place. My grades had dropped drastically. I went from having very high, like 3.8 GPA to, I don't even remember what it was when I actually graduated, but it was like in 2.678 range or something like that. So this was when I really started to realize that I needed help. I went to treatment and I started having to face my feelings and emotions for the first time without a substance to numb them. And this was terrifying to me. I didn't know how I was going to make it through that time. I wanted to leave a lot, and I just kept getting through it day by day, and telling myself, just make it through today, just make it through today. And so here I am in treatment as a college graduate in my mid-20s, and I feel like a scared child again, and I don't know how to cope or deal. I would say the things I learned in treatment helped me a lot, and being in treatment took me out of a really negative environment. I had a very kind of toxic, unhealthy home life. So being in treatment gave me a safe place to kind of heal and learn some coping skills and things like that. It was really the things I started to learn after treatment that saved my life. And I would say those things continue to save my life today on a daily basis. They keep me sane. Growing up, I always thought things I felt inside or the thoughts that I had in my head were the absolute truth and the only reality that there was. I was never really taught to question my thoughts or my perception of reality. So I just figured if I thought something or if I felt something, that was truth and that was the end of it. So one important thing I learned was that my feelings are not facts. My feelings can lie to me sometimes. I started going to support groups locally, and I found people that were going through similar things to me. Either they were currently going through those things or they had been through those things before. So having people that I could relate to and could relate to me was very refreshing for me. And it helped me so much, just being able to talk and speak my mind and have people understand what I was going through. So I started to learn how to challenge that negative self-talk from my inner self and how to redirect my negative thinking. And it was a slow process, it wasn't something that just happened overnight, but just really learning how to recognize when those negative thought patterns come in, and how to practice some self-care, taking care of myself and my mental health was just so important for me. It still is very important for me this day. I learned about acceptance, accepting myself and others, learning to love myself, learning that I can only control myself and my reaction to things, and I cannot control anything outside of myself. And some of these things may seem common sense to other people, but for me, these were foreign ideas. Like I'd never heard these things, and no one ever taught me these things. So I discovered a lot of techniques to help change those negative thought patterns. One technique I really like is called mindfulness, and some of you may have heard of this before, but it's basically being present in the moment, in the here and the now, and not stuck. For me, like I would get stuck in these painful past memories, or I would be terrified of an uncertain future and just would be crippled in those moments, so learning how to bring it back to the now and the present. And I can't change my past. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So why worry about those things? It is easier said than done, but like learning to practice these things and creating new habits with these things really helped me a lot. I learned to not let my fear and anxiety take control, and to recognize when these thought patterns entered my head and to challenge their validity, really. So there's a mindfulness exercise I really like, and it's fairly easy to remember, and it's something you can do if you're in a public place and you just feel a lot of stress and anxiety and you need to kind of ground yourself and center yourself. It's called the 5 senses. So what you do, is just kind of try to take a deep breath and get yourself centered and name one thing you can see, one thing you can hear, one thing you can smell, one thing you can taste, and one thing you can touch. And sometimes if I have a really heightened sense of stress, I will just do this several times. And it really, that connection to what's in the present moment around me helps center me and ground me a lot. And there's a lot of other techniques I'm sure a lot of you have heard, like breathing techniques, that really helps like calm your central nervous system, and like really paying attention to your breathing. I'll put my hand, on my stomach right below my chest, just to kind of feel those breaths and really tune into them and recognize them. Some other things that have been very helpful for me are being in nature, something about the natural world around us, like in the woods or at the beach or, any kind of natural setting, just are really calming to me and help me a lot. And music has always been a big thing for me, and writing as well. I like to write. It really helps me get my thoughts out that I might not be able to say out loud or speak of. And art, I'm not really that great at art, but I enjoy it. It kind of settles my spirits, so to say. So some of these things may sound really simple or corny, but to me, the most important things that I have learned in my recovery are really kindness and compassion towards myself and others, being present in the here and now, and not stuck past or fearful of my future, and really learning to reach out and ask for help and support. That if I wouldn't have done that, I don't know where I would be today. And I really hope that something I say here today could help someone, so maybe you wouldn't have to experience the same things that I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, so much. And this is a great conversation, you guys. We're continuing. For myself as well, I have to remember my feelings are not facts, and that they come in waves. I just have to write it out, and it's going to be okay. And it is refreshing to talk about it. If you find a support group, shout out, in Baton Rouge, there's Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. You can Google them, DBSA. They have a meeting every week here in Baton Rouge. There's tons of meetings out there. So go to our website, lepac.org, get those resources. And, as you see, a lot of times mental health challenges and substance use, kind of goes hand in hand. So continue, to encourage you to reach out. We're going to do a poll right quick on that subject. So just take a few seconds. How well do you take care of yourself? Great. Eat well, exercise, talk to people. I'm okay. Don't worry about it till I get stressed. Or not well. I put myself last. Just take a second to answer that. I can say for myself, I put myself last. I was so glad to hear what Katie had to say, because I had to take it in myself. Let's see if we can get the results up. And if, as you become a parent, you're going to put yourself last. So everybody, okay, usually don't worry about it until you get stressed out. And that's very, very common. And so just encourage you, have a plan in place. You may not have full-fledged panic attacks or anything like that, but have your plan, know your resources just in case, or if somebody else is going through it also. So right now we're going to hear from State Senator Regina Barrow. She's a pretty cool person. She is front and center when it comes to trauma, tragedy, things that have gone down in Baton Rouge, that made national news. She is right there in the middle with it. So thank you, Senator, and let's hear from her.
Hello, this is Senator Regina Barrow. I regret I am unable to attend in person, but I want you to know how proud I am of you. It has been difficult times with the pandemic, virtual learning, natural disasters, getting back to school. But you've done it. You've bounced back, you've been resilient, and you've done a great job. However, I want you to know it's okay to acknowledge that you're not okay. So if you're struggling in one of the areas that you hear about today, please reach out to one of the LEPAC peer support workers. They are here to help and even perhaps share their own personal stories. It is my hope and desire that you hear something today that inspires you and encourages you to keep moving forward. God bless you, and know that the best is yet to come. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Senator Barrow. We really appreciate her taking the time to send that message out. And I'm going to go, we had a question real quick come in. What should I do if my roommate is acting like he may be developing a mental illness? Well, basically talk to him. If you can do that, if you're comfortable with having that conversation, have it. You can provide the resources. You know our website now. You can have those resources, print them out. Give them to your RA. That would help have a tool for the RA. And if you can't talk to them, talk to your RA. Reach out to the mental health office on your campus. And just encourage them to reach out for that. So thanks for that question. Next up, we have another amazing peer support specialist. She is going to be the last one. So last but not least for the conversation today, Pascal Wynn. She's going to talk about resiliency and change. She's currently a parent partner mentor at the Extra Mile Family Resource Center. She works with the National Children's Trust Fund Alliance, where she is a member of the Birth Parent Network. She's a certified peer support specialist, and she started off her journey into advocacy work after she got reunited with her children. Today, Pascal is a proud mom of 7, living life in recovery, and a wife to her extremely supportive husband. So let's hear from Pascal.
Hi, my name is Pascal Wynn. I am a Louisiana resident and I'm a volunteer worker with LAPAC. And I'm here today to tell you a little bit about my story of change and resilience. So I want to start back from when I was a child. I lived in another state and what seemed to be like we had a pretty good life until one day my mom and dad broke the news to us that they were getting a divorce. Immediately, I was very angry and resentful. And so then I was even more sad to find out that we had to move to another state. And so we moved to Louisiana when I was about 13 years old. And so I automatically had a lot of problems. I didn't want to do the work that the teachers were giving me in school. I was struggling with concentrating. I was just struggling all around and there was no one there to help me. And I didn't know that I was facing a challenge of having ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And I didn't find out about that until later on. And it was all due to the problems that I was causing at school and the suggestions that I be seen by a doctor. So my mom brought me to the doctor and got me diagnosed. I refused to take the medications and I still was struggling with school, skipping school, just not being a good kid to my parent, or in the community, And so all of that just led to even, more problems in my life. I ended up skipping school so much that my mom actually just withdrew me from school because she didn't know what else to do. She had tried everything she possibly could to help me, but I didn't want to help myself. And so I kind of ran away to another city, thought I was gonna be a grown up and do all these wonderful things. And I knew what I was doing, but little did I know that, something even darker was headed my way. And so, yeah, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd and, partying, going to nightclubs, drinking and using substances. And it just didn't end on the weekends for me. It started off really slow at first, but gradually it was an everyday thing and something I felt like I needed to have to survive. But so luckily, it ended up getting me, in some trouble. And unfortunately, but fortunately, I was led to get some help at that point, and that I'll never forget that day because that was the one day in my life that for the first time, I really felt like someone understood that there was definitely a problem with me and that I needed some help and what help I did need. No one else could figure out what to do with me or how to help me, So yeah, I was suggested to go to, some recovery meetings and I started doing that. And still to this day, I attend those meetings. I was also doing some volunteer work in my community at a family resource center. And from there, someone that works there suggested that maybe I take the peer support training in my state and, go out and help others. And so I went ahead and I did that. And I started getting involved, with peer services. And then I met Miss Angela Lorio and on a Zoom call one day, and she suggested that I maybe sign up in one of the work groups for the organization. And I was a little hesitant at first, but I went ahead and I did it, and I stuck through all of that. And that's what led me to where I'm at right now with LAPAC, and I was asked to, share a little bit about my personal life and my story of change and resiliency, and no matter you know, the things that I went through in my life. Unfortunately, I didn't have any coping skills as a child, but as an adult is when I, you know, really got the help and then had the right tools to make the better choices in my life, you know. But I'm on here to share this because I don't want you to have to wait that long to get help. You know, help is here now. And if you know someone struggling or you're struggling yourself, you can check out our website, www.lapaac.org. There's plenty of resources on there, and for peer-to-peer support. There's many things you can do and get involved in. And I'm glad that I get to come on here and share some of this, you know, and there's a lot of changes going on now, and I'm sure you're probably going through them too, you know, especially with the pandemic, you know, and all of the hurricanes that have come through, and then just the virtual learning. It's been really hard for everyone, you know. And so there's definitely been a rise in supports and needing supports like this, especially, you know, just having someone to talk to. And when you have someone that you can talk to that can relate to you, it makes it even better. Or someone that's already been through it, you know, like me, the things that I've been through, you know, and now I get to work with others, you know, who may be going through what I have already been through, you know, and I can offer that hope and that guidance and that security to know that things will get better, you know. So yeah, thank you for letting me share, you know, my story, and I hope that you can get some help if you need it, and that the things I said may have or may not related to you, but just know that, you know, help is here and we are here to help you.
Thank you, Pascal, so much. Powerful stories today. Be resilient, keep getting back up. And I hope this is resonating with you today, that just because you may have a mental health diagnosis or struggling with substance use, you are not broken. You are not less than, okay? You have dignity, know your worth to get help. You know, mental health diagnoses, you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, just like somebody with diabetes. You know, we have to take care of the neck up in our body, just like we take care of the neck down. Peer support specialist, this is one of the fastest growing professions in the mental health world. If you're out there, if you're in college, if you have lived experience, go to lapaac.org. You can become a member now if you have that lived experience. And our resources, again, those are also on our website, lapaac.org. I want to shout out to a huge thank you for everybody for spending this hour and a half with us of your time. And whether it's going to help you or you're going to have a tool to help somebody else. And thank you, OBH made this possible through a grant with SAMHSA. And amazing thank you, round of applause to our campaign team. There was a huge, great campaign team that made this possible to get this event going. And we're just so grateful to have this opportunity, this privilege. And tune in to part 2. So send to part 1, part 2, check it out. More amazing raw stories, and we're just gonna continue keeping it real and bringing things to you that'll hopefully inspire something in you, touch your life, and inspire you to reach out instead of turning in. All right, you guys, have a great day. Peace out.